My name is Maria, for those of you who doesn't know me. I'm a yoga and Tantra teacher at Tara. And our topic tonight is saying yes to life, an attitude of embracing and accepting. And it could seem a little bit like a funny topic, because what's that about, saying yes to life? After all, we live it, so it could seem like we are saying yes to life and embracing it to some capacity. We're going to investigate that a little bit today, what it means, and if we're really doing it, because we can have some surprises in this direction. Now, if you just think a little bit right now, how much are you really embracing life in this moment? How much are you aware somehow of the life force that is running through your body in this moment? Very often our life is characterized by a certain degree of autopilot, meaning that day after day passes and we don't really notice much, we don't really feel much. We can't say we feel intensely alive. Usually there are a few moments here and there. If we are good, then at least a few times a week, we will have moments that stand out where we really feel alive and we have this experience that actually comes with saying yes to life. But otherwise, we are usually quite biased somehow in our life experience, even from the perspective that we tend to argue a lot with life. We put conditions on what a good life means. We can even say, okay, this should be in my life, but this shouldn't be in my life. No, that's wrong. That shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be part of my life experience right now. And we even somehow can argue a little bit with life. What should be, what should not be, why is it like this? It's not fair. We can have all sorts of reactions that are not exactly, let's say, embracing, accepting, or in any way a yes. Most often we have some things we say yes to, and a lot of things we say no to. Which, from the perspective of saying yes to our life is both the things we like and the things we don't like so much. And if we only say yes to some of them, it's a fairly conditioned yes that we are placing in front of life. Now, usually at this point in my little mini workshop, because I've done this one before, we would do an exercise 2 and 2, which obviously I can't really see working under our current circumstances. But nevertheless, it's such a great exercise that I'm going to try to use it as an example. But for this, I need a volunteer. So if I can have a brave volunteer that unmutes themselves and come forward. It's not dangerous, I promise.
Nein, ganz doch machen.
Do I have a volunteer?
I'll do it if you want, yeah.
Great, Matthew, wonderful. So it's a very simple exercise. We're just going to have a little conversation and the rest of you are going to observe what happens. There's going to be 2 parts of the conversation and it's really simple. It's not going to last very long. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to come with a proposition to you in a moment and then we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about that. In the first part, the condition is that you have to answer every sentence starting with a yes, but. So in a moment, you just have to start every sentence with a yes, but. Apart from that, you can say whatever you want in relation to what we're talking about, of course. Okay?
Yeah.
So, Matthew, how about we go to the forest because it's so beautiful and sunny outside?
Yes, but I'd like to go. Yes, but I don't want to go. I don't understand the yes, the but bit. Yeah, just yes.
So you could say yes, but I don't know if I have time, or however, but it needs to fit a little bit.
Yes, but my feet are hurting, so I might not come.
Yes, but maybe you will feel better and forget about it if you get out in the fresh air.
Yes, but I'm not sure you're telling me the truth.
Yes, but I think maybe I will be able to convince you.
Yes, but I've only got one shoe.
Great. Well done, Matthew. So that's an example. Now, the rest of you, please pay attention. We're going to try to have a similar conversation. Now it will be your turn, Matthew, to suggest something to me. Right. Rule now is we have to start every sentence with a yes and in the rest of the conversation.
Would you like to come and help me find my shoe?
Yes, and we could also look for a beautiful place to go for a walk.
Fantastic. We found our shoe. Let's go and climb that tree.
Yes, and we could also go to the beach if we're allowed after lockdown.
Brilliant. And let's get on the boat and go to the island over there, which is beautiful.
Thank you, Matthew. You forgot the yes and, but the attitude was
Yes,
the most
yes.
important. So I think we managed to illustrate a little bit. Now, for the rest of you, did you notice a difference between these two conversations? And what did you observe? As an attitude, as an experience of what happened? Anything that comes to you?
One is limiting and the other one is like increases the possibilities.
Exactly.
Second one, I think, like listening to it bring me some energy, some creative energy. Felt happy to listen to it.
How did you feel, Matthew?
Yeah, I noticed a big difference. Yeah. Yes, but wasn't so good because you're right. There is a condition. There's a bit of a block. You know, you're kind of tripping over your feet, whereas the other, you're letting yourself fly a bit more.
But did you notice that a yes but is not really a yes at all?
It's a conditional. It's a yes. It's like a half yes. Yeah. It's a maybe tomorrow yes.
It's kind of like a no. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's kind of like a no, not like that. No, not like no. You might as well just say no if you say
It's a
yes,
definitely
but,
maybe.
really. Yeah. It's not a yes, that's for sure. So I like this exercise very much because it is showing so much what we do in front of life. Because I don't know if you noticed, but if you catch yourself, but very often comes after yes. The funny thing is it usually happens to me now in this talk because I said it. And then you're all going to point it out to me when I say yes, but, because that's clearly not the right attitude. But so often that's how we are approaching life, with this condition put on it, which in fact is not a yes at all. A very conditioned yes actually is a no. So already there we could see that potentially we're not saying as much yes to life as we might have thought initially. Now you might wonder how this is connecting to a spiritual practice. In particularly, I want to connect it to a tantric practice and a tantric point of view. Now many of you are in the Tantra course anyway, so you will be able to relate. But saying yes to life is in reality the kind of essence of the tantric attitude, and we can say a condition in order to walk the tantric path, and in reality a necessity to transform on any path in life, unless maybe you go in a cave and meditate somewhere in peace and quiet. You can get away with conditioned yes or no yeses at all. But as long as you are in this life and you want to transform, you want to grow, you need to consider how you are positioning yourself in terms of your openness and attitude. If I am to take it back to the very beginning, because that's the best place to understand this importance of saying yes to life, in the Tantric tradition is very beautifully and poetically described how the entire creation is manifested from the frantic lovemaking between Shiva and Shakti. And then the interaction between these two as a perfect unit is creating everything that exists. In this description, we have Shiva, which is the consciousness or the awareness, and we have Shakti, which is the energy, or the creative power, or life, in other words. The way we maybe meet Shakti the most is through this intense experience of life itself, this power of life itself. Now, all is well and happy when that romance is good, meaning Shiva and Shakti are together. But when they're not together, things are not so good, as it tends to be in romantic stories. So when Shiva is without Shakti, he is a corpse, completely lifeless. And when Shakti, the life force, is without awareness of Shiva, she is chaos and destruction. Therefore, we want the two of them to be together. We want to have a wonderful love story because that is when we have a harmonious life experience. Now, to put it a little bit more relevant for us, not having it as a love story about someone else, for us, we can say that in this context, we can understand Shakti as the energy of life, our experience of life, our experience of our own emotions, everything that is somehow manifesting this life force in our life. And then we have Shiva, which is the awareness, the consciousness that is balancing this manifestation of the life force. The Tantric path is the one that is embracing fully this power of life, or Shakti, considering that life is the best way that we can grow. Life is a constant feedback for us. It's a mirror in which we get to know about ourselves. We learn about ourselves through all the life experiences that we are having. And all the time, our interactions with other people, the different life experiences that we have, the emotions we experience, and so on, is a feedback for us, showing us different things about ourselves, about life, about the universe, ultimately speaking. And in this process, we are expanding and growing and learning, ideally. But very often our relationship with Shakti or with life is not so good. In Tantra, there's a big emphasis on having this attitude of adoration in front of Shakti, really adoring this feminine power or life itself. When we are afraid of life a bit, which is the case for most of us in various ways, it is expressed through this very conditioned yes. We try to control life, to make life be in a certain way, to make insurances, to have security, to in different ways protect ourselves from life's free flow and unfolding. Because we think we know better and we think we know how it should be. The problem is that with this attitude, we end up with very conditioned yes, first of all, in front of life. I want this part, but I don't want that part, and that's not how it's supposed to be. You ruin a bit the mirror if you don't want to look in it somehow unbiased. So your feedback is not the same. And therefore your process of growth is not very efficient. It is said, and maybe that sounds a little bit odd, but that your preferences have absolutely no place in a spiritual practice. Now, what that means is that the way that we are supposed to, let's say, grow with life is that we are supposed to expand with it, not resist it. So not say this is how and this is where it should flow, but simply expand with our life experience. That would be when we feel harmonious and happy. Now, very often that doesn't happen, as I said, because we have a lot of conditions on how life should be and what should be right now and what shouldn't be and what's fair and what's right and what's wrong and so on. A lot of arguing going on with life, most often based on our preferences. Then along comes Tantra and tells us that we should have a non-preferential expansion of our consciousness in order to have a cosmic dimension eventually. And we wonder, what does that mean, a non-preferential expansion? It actually means that you need to accept life as it is unfolding. Because normally how we are living life is based on preference. So some things you like, some things you don't like. And it very easily ends up in an attitude of hunting the things that you think are great and avoiding the ones that you don't like so much. And then your life is quite predictable in that sense. You might be fairly successful in getting the things you want and avoiding the things you don't, or you might not. Usually we're not 100% successful in that process, and we have different kinds of surprises where life shows us that she's completely free, unpredictable, spontaneous, and we can't really control her. And that's often when we have different wake-up calls. Exactly this free, spontaneous power of Shakti or the life force itself. But we really try. And then, paradoxically enough, we will even say, I wish my life was different. Or I wish that I could transform this experience that I have. For instance, I wish I had better relationships. Or I wish I had more love in my life. Or I wish I was more successful. But then if we look at how we go about our life experience, it's a bit odd that we expect it to be different, because we always do the same thing. Now, preferences is a funny thing, because a preference can be very different from person to person. And in reality, it's just an expression of a certain point of view, because we all have different preferences, and therefore we hunt different things and avoid other things. But they're just an expression of our point of view in that moment. And if we always do things in the same way, from the same point of view, it's a bit silly to expect it to be different. Say, if I want a better relationship, but I always go about my relationships in the same way, why would they be better? Then, of course, I have to project it on the outside and say, if only I find the right person, then I won't have that problem. But somehow it seems that no matter what person you try, it just keeps coming back to you, that situation of a relationship that isn't really fulfilling or isn't really working. It's the same for any other scenario that you might come across, work related or other things in your life experience. Now, the problem maybe is not so much the let's say, the people that you are meeting in that moment, but rather the way that you look at that situation, the way that you relate to that situation, the way that you behave in that relationship, making you end up in the same place. Einstein, for instance, defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Nevertheless, that's very often what we do in our approach in front of life. And then we say, no, I really want it to be different. I want to transform. I want my life to be like this amazing dream I have in my heart, but somehow I just don't manage. Because we still want what we want, and we want to avoid the things that we don't like, based on preferences. Now, Shakti, or life, in fact, has intrinsic intelligence. And that's what we're embracing on the Tantric Path. Because you remember that the beautiful romantic love story of Shiva and Shakti, they really want to be together, actually, and to be harmonious and happy and united. And therefore, Shakti very much wants to unite us with consciousness. If we open up and let her, so to speak. But no, we think we know better. So we want to control. We want to make sure we only get a certain type of experiences, which means we don't really grow with life or expand with life. We try to dig our tunnels in our particular direction through life, which very rarely meet up or end us up meeting this perfect love story where Shiva and Shakti are joined together. That can only really happen if we dare to trust Shakti, to open up towards the life experience and let her guide us to a deeper state of wisdom. And how does she do that? Very simply. She presents us with different life experiences. Some of them we like, some of them we like very much, some of them we don't like so much, or we even find terrible or difficult or super challenging. Nevertheless, they're all of them important for us to expand our perspective, for us to learn more, for us to grow, for us to become wise in front of life's experience. And then also we will discover something very interesting when we dare to open up a little bit in front of our life and not be so busy putting conditions and arguing with what should or shouldn't be. That very often, even in the things that we don't like, there can be hidden treasures. Only we never find them because we try to never go there. So it's kind of like you don't want to go into that area of your life because you're afraid of what you might find. Sometimes it's just because you're afraid that you're not going to be good at it, or you're afraid that you're going to discover something about yourself that you really won't like, or you're afraid that, or you just don't like it. Like you don't find it very comfortable, let's say, that life experience. But then if you dare to go into that area of your life, what you very often will discover is there is a hidden treasure in there somewhere. Say, a small example. You are going to go on a journey and it's delayed. Let's say the train is delayed and you get really annoyed very often when that happens, argues with it, and you close down in front of the life experience in that moment because it's not the way you think it's supposed to be. Say you're actually meant in that moment, perhaps, to go a little bit later because exactly on that train you're going to meet a person who's going to change your life forever. Only that you're so grumpy and closed down that you won't even look at anybody. So you're never going to meet them because you're busy putting conditions on what should be the situation. Say, on the other hand, you surrender to what is your life experience in that moment, meaning that you're a bit late, but what to do? You accept, you embrace the conditions, and you stay open in front of life experience. You might discover a treasure on that journey, for instance, or you might just have a little bit of extra time to contemplate and feel yourself. That might also just be the purpose in that moment. Also, very often in front of a crisis, speaking of, a bit as we're experiencing now, and that's also why this topic could be so relevant right now. We tend to resist, finding it difficult, finding it annoying, considering that what's happening is bad, closing, tensing, arguing, thinking it's not good, being concerned, and so on, which might block us completely from discovering the treasure that might be there. Very often, if we look at our life, the most special moments were born out of a moment of crisis. The moments where we really learned some things about ourselves or our life took a new direction happened very often as a result of crisis. very often we grow from very difficult experiences, but only if we can open in front of them. If we resist, if we close down, if we're scared, usually we just have a lot of agony and we try to run for what we like as soon as possible. We miss the lesson. And then what happens? Life insists, because life is good like that. It's the best teaching system, because it doesn't let us off the hook until we learn. So you keep having the same problem, coming back from different angles, until you're willing to embrace it, until you're willing to accept that's the situation and try to learn something from it. You cannot escape, which is a grace in a way, but we often find it very unfair. We argue with that situation. We think it shouldn't be like this. We're in a school that is in this way very, very efficient, because nobody can skip a class, ultimately speaking. It's all noted down very well. And if we want to grow and discover what we can be and how amazing our life can be and reach that union that will create harmony and happiness in our life, we have to take the lessons. We have to pass the tests, so to speak, and take the exams that are coming. Most of all, that just means being open to what is happening in that moment and trying not to struggle against it. Therefore, this attitude of saying yes to life basically starts with an attitude of acceptance. So to accept what is your life right now, instead of fighting against it, saying, oh, this shouldn't happen. But what happens, happens right now. And there isn't so much you can do about it, except that that is your life in this moment. Because as well, this attitude of running away a little bit and struggling against what is happening in this moment, it makes you miss out on big parts of your life. Because your life consists of many things. As I said, some of them you like very much, some of them you don't like at all. But still is your life, is part of what you would call your life experience. And therefore, when you struggle with some of the things, when you fight against it, you're fighting against your own life in that moment and actually retreating from it, which makes you miss out on parts of this beautiful experience that we're having being alive in this world. Now, when we can manage somehow to have this attitude of acceptance, kind of at least first of all say, okay, what is happening in this moment is happening. That's it. You will discover that you become able to respond to life in a free and loving way. Now, what is important here is actually, and often that's a question, so I'm going to preempt it a little bit, but if I just accept what is right now, am I not just going to indulge also in very negative experiences and just let things be how they are, even if they're terrible or they're not harmonious and so on? Actually, no, because this acceptance of what is now is the condition to also find solutions to things that should be improved in your life experience. Now, first of all, when we want to change something, we need to be aware of it. But also, if we want to transform a life situation, we somehow need to be able to touch it, let's say. For those of you who are from our Tantra classes, for instance, and already have met this idea of transmutation and sublimation, so turning the poison into nectar or lifting your energies, which is a very essential part of the Tantric practice. In order to do that, you need to first embrace that energy. You need to first touch that energy. It's a bit like if I want to move my cup here, I have a teacup here, I have to first touch it. I'm not, unfortunately, in a position to move it just with the power of my mind, so I need to touch it if I want to move it somewhere, which is the case somehow as well when we want to transform something in our life. We need to first touch it, meaning embracing it as being part of our life in this moment. Otherwise, we can't do anything about it. Very often, we have a different strategy when we don't like something and we want it to be different in our life. We kind of try to avoid it or ignore it or suppress it or get rid of it. And it doesn't really work because it still stays there. We didn't touch it, so we couldn't move it. And it's still there in our life, and it pops up in different places when it's least convenient, being very confronting, and we can't do so much about it. Until we say, okay, it's there. I accept that it is here. It doesn't mean I accept I'm going to stay miserable forever because it's a difficult situation. but at least I accept that this is the situation right now. Once we do that, suddenly you will see that out of this, we can say, open or free or loving position you take in front of life, creative solutions can start to spring. And you can start to operate this process of inner alchemy. You can start to transform that situation. In reality, you'll see it start to transform a little bit by itself. Because in the moment that you put yourself there to say, okay, I'm looking at it. This is what is here. I'm becoming aware of it. I'm not trying to run away from it. I'm not trying to suppress it. I'm just embracing it. I'm looking at it. You're bringing Shiva to Shakti. And then she's happy. And suddenly things start to become more harmonious because the lovers are united again. Otherwise, you keep her there frustrated, and we all know what happens with a frustrated woman. It's very difficult to manage and also not so pleasant. And that is what happens to our life when we ignore parts of it. It tends to become more and more impossible and more difficult, and we don't know why. Because we don't give it the loving embrace of our awareness, or saying this yes, this embracing yes, and remember, not the yes but the yes and, in that moment, really meeting her. And then we can start to also transform situations for the better. But first and foremost, we need to have this attitude of acceptance. Now there is another let's say energy that is called an expansion. We spoke about this idea of the expansion of consciousness, or the non-preferential expansion of consciousness, as being the way that we are transforming through the tantric practice. In transforming or expanding with life, we can say, in this learning and growing to a cosmic consciousness. Also love, by the way, is called an expansion from finite to infinite. In reality, this attitude of saying yes to life means loving life unconditionally, being in love with life. As one of my favorite sayings go, love everything, resistance is futile. Because the wiser we get, the more we realize that that is completely true. In the end, the only response that really works is love. Bring love there. It brings us to the truth that only let's say the magical power of your heart can contain life in this way and can expand with life in this completely free way, which is also why we hear Tantra referred to as the path of living from the heart, or the path of love. It's the same thing in reality as saying yes to life. Because saying yes to life means loving it with no hesitations, no buts, just an and you embrace it all in this overwhelming love that we are cultivating. Of course, also nothing else but love will unite Shiva and Shakti in the end, and therefore bring consciousness and energy together. And in the moment that we do that, somehow bringing our awareness full of love into our life experience, no matter what it is in this moment, we will see that wisdom starts to guide us. There is this intrinsic intelligence in the flow of life itself that brings us exactly what we need in exactly the moment we need it, if we have the courage to love it and to learn from it and to grow with it. And then we have a perfectly natural path, which is the beauty of the Tantric Path. Is perfectly natural. All you have to do is live completely. Love life and grow with it. Let yourself expand with it. And you will be cosmic eventually, because that is where life is taking you. But when we fight, when we struggle, when we put conditions and so on, we exit a little bit from our life and we try to skip classes in school. And we are not reaching to the profound state of wisdom that we otherwise can attain. Now, there are somehow three tendencies we can say is blocking this ability to say yes to life, to be free in front of life, to be fully present with it. Because of course also this attitude of saying yes and embracing life means that we are really present with what happens right now. We're not trying to run away from it. We're not trying to ignore it because we don't like it. No matter if we have a preference for what is happening or not, we aim to be with it, to be really present with what is happening now. And out of this, to find solutions and to move further. But very often we exit the present moment and we run away from life a bit and start to put conditions. Because of three main tendencies that is creating most of the suffering and the limitations in our life. One is trying to control in a forceful way. So trying to make life go the way you think it should, and kind of try to bend the world to your will and make everything the way that you consider it should be, thinking you know better than life and any higher power. The second one would be to make demands of life. I deserve this and this and this, and you should deliver. So give me now, because this is how it should be. Again, we know better, and we have a list of demands that life should fulfill in order to be okay. Also an attitude to make sure you are not happy and growing with life. And the last one would be the rejection of what is here and now. Saying, no, I don't agree with what is now, which in itself is a funny thing to say, because what is in this moment is in this moment, and it is your life. Now, you might be able to transform it, but to argue with the fact that it's there is a bit unintelligent. Nevertheless, we're doing it a lot. So it's very good to observe these three tendencies, because even putting a little bit of awareness into our everyday life experience and some of these attitudes, as I said, even this yes, but, try to catch yourself when you have that attitude, because I would expect it to be quite a lot. For most, when they look into it first, they will see that that attitude, the very conditioned yes, is there as a generalized background to our interaction with life. And as soon as we start to become aware of it, you will also see you can start to shift it, just by the fact that you notice. Because in that moment, you're bringing Shiva, the awareness, to Shakti, the life experience. And already there will be increased harmony. It sounds magical, but try it, because it is, in fact, true. Now, when it comes to our happy life experience, because very often we have this idea that the very reason why we argue with what is happening right now is because we want a happy life. And therefore, if what happens right now, I don't like it, I should get rid of it or avoid it so that I can be happy. It's not the strategy that works. I hope it's clear, or more clear at least by now. Because you get stuck with that undigested lesson, and you won't be able to grow past it. You won't be able to bring Shiva and Shakti, your consciousness and energy, together in that moment, and therefore obtain harmony. So the first thing somehow to change is not what is happening in this moment, is your attitude in front of it. Maybe you also know the saying, attitude changes everything. Another one of my favorites, because it's so true. Anyone who have played a little bit with self-affirmations and inner attitudes and so on probably have noticed a situation depends much more on how you relate to it than what is actually happening on the outside. And I want to do a little exercise with this before we also have some time for sharing and questions and so on. It will be a little meditation exercise. So I would like you all to sit in a way that you can close your eyes and have a bit of introspection, experiencing somehow these two attitudes actually that we had earlier as well, with the yes but and the yes and, only now from a slightly different angle, more from the perspective of resisting and embracing. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to guide you through a small meditation. There will be a part in silence, which I will also be guiding, and there will be a part with music as well, unfolding the second part of our inner attitude. Now, what we will use as contemplation, because it's such a wonderful opportunity, will be the current situation. So we are in a bit of a crisis. It's felt differently for different people. Who knows, some might even be enjoying it because they have a lot of time on their hands and they have maybe a little bit of a retreat and time to be with their loved ones or whatever. For others, it might be very concerning, very challenging, difficult in various ways and so on. But we will aim to relate to this experience that we are all having together now, and we will do it with 2 different attitudes, as I will be guiding in a moment. So if you will just sit now with your spine straight, and if you feel comfortable, close the eyes. And now I want you just to think a little bit and to connect to this situation that we are having at the moment with an attitude of resistance. So to be a bit concerned about it, maybe this comes naturally to you at the moment, and I just want you to focus on that you are not at all feeling open to the life situation that is right now, all the difficulties that you consider it comes with, or maybe fears around what will happen, how long this will last, how it's going to affect you, how it's going to affect others, the uncertainty of what will come, which is an uncertainty for all of us. Allow yourself to feel some inner resistance towards this, kind of wishing it away, maybe pulling away from it a bit inside of you. And allow yourself to argue with it a little bit as well. Why did this happen now? It's not good. Why does it have to happen? However you are finding yourself unfairly treated in this situation by life. And then I just want you now to become aware of how your body feels and what emotions you are having in this moment as a result of this inner attitude. Noticing also if there is any tension in your body, what kind of emotions come up, how you're feeling. Now I'd like you to take a few deep breaths. Really breathing into your belly and exhaling deeply, feeling your body relax and purposefully relax your body. Letting go of any tension that might have come from the previous attitude. Now gently for a moment bring your attention to the middle of the chest as if you are resting it at the level of your heart. You could even breathe into your chest a bit, just becoming aware how it expands as you inhale and how you relax more on every exhalation. Feeling how a space opens up inside you as if your heart becomes a little bit bigger on every inhalation. And now again, aim to relate to the situation that is happening right now, but aim to do it from a place of, first of all, at least accepting that this is what you are experiencing right now and what life is offering you in this moment. And just bring it into your awareness without trying to run away from it, but just go and meet it and look at it. And aim to look at it from your heart, just looking at it with love, acceptance, And just simply try to be with it as open as you can. I'm going to have a bit of music as a background and a support for this. And just for a moment now, remaining with your eyes closed, become aware of how your body feels. And become aware of your feelings, what it's like to be you in this moment, as opposed to the previous attitude. And when you're ready, return gently. So, would anyone like to share the experience in this exercise? If you managed to take these two attitudes, how you felt the difference?
Hello, Akash, I'm Charles speaking. I'm just curious. First, it begins with awareness and then meditation.
Sorry?
Hi.
I didn't hear so well.
It begins with the awareness and then the meditation.
It was more about taking two different attitudes. So first it was one of resisting what is happening right now, and the second part was embracing the experience, as to illustrate the conditioned approach and the open, accepting one.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
I actually had quite a powerful realization. I'm in a situation right now with my partner that I'm blaming him for something, and it's based on his weakness. I thought it's his weakness, and then I realized, oh my God, I have exactly the same weakness that he has. It's like the idea of resonance. It just hit me so hard. Like, oh my God, his weakness is exactly, I have the same weakness in me. And it's just confirmed again, the resonance thing. But I was just blown away. Thank you.
No, but it's also sometimes if we just dare to look into things, it's quite obvious what we have to learn, or the mirror somehow is being shown very clearly to us. But when we refuse to look, for sure, we will not discover and we will not learn. Could you feel it even in the body? Because I don't know if you notice, very often when we resist things, there's even kind of contractions in the body and so on. It's how a lot of diseases appear as well. This resistance, constantly resisting, so you get all tense and uncomfortable inside, and a lot of negative emotions come up. Whereas when you relax and open, it's like letting go somehow in your body completely, and it's a very different state of openness and relaxation and expansion that very spontaneously appear.
I felt a big sense of warmth in my body in the second part of the exercise, and I actually feel it still now. I also had a bit of a small realization. I was kind of telling myself in the second part of the exercise that I embrace life. And then as I was paying attention to the breath as well, I had this little aha moment, and I said, we actually breathe life constantly with every breath. So it was almost like, how could we not embrace life if we are breathing it? Obviously, hopefully not breathing, the bad air whenever we are in a polluted situation. But other than that, it was really nice. Oh my God, we do breathe life every moment. And for me, this exercise also felt very relevant because I was actually in a temporary contract, and it was meant to finish around June, and then for something related to the person that was coming back to work, essentially it kind of got ended 2 months in advance, which means I just ended my contract. So I was a little bit afraid of doing the first part of the exercise, because I've been really working on not listening to that part of me that could get worried and no one is hiring and all of that. But I tried, and I think I did get a little bit tense, but not that much. And then it was much nicer when it was the second part of the exercise, and I was actually saying, actually life is giving me such a moment to work on myself and have time to study and have time to practice.
Yeah. Great. Now there's a question, if the embracing part, you had to see the advantages of the current situation, not necessarily. It's not that you're looking actively. It's not really the same as positive thinking or something. It's more of just being open and embrace that this is the situation right now. Whatever is. And to open up in front of that and to aim to kind of embrace it lovingly. Very often what happens, however, is that you start to see things that are actually positive because your perspective change in the moment you let go of your preference. But it's not that you're actively trying to see something else. You're just trying to let go of your normal setup, we can say, because normally this way of relating that is very much based on preferences give you a filter in front of life. And then you judge very much what happens in accordance with your preference. Now, if you can let go of that and just be open, suddenly you have the chance to have a completely new perspective that could be quite surprising for you, because it might not be based on your normal preference. And suddenly you can have a perspective come up from a completely different angle, where things might look very different. And that's where we could have surprises, that suddenly we see an advantage in a situation that might look awful from our normal preference, for instance. But not as a way of looking actively for it, just opening up and then maybe be surprised.
I felt like I wasn't thinking the second time. I was more in my body and like very peaceful, and like I could feel my awareness more in my heart and my body instead of like in my head and tensing up my hands and stuff.
Yeah.
I was dancing as well.
It's a much more natural way of being, because that's how we're supposed to be. Life is a process of growth. We're supposed to grow with it, expand with it. It's when we resist, we are unhealthy and unnatural. And actually, when we get sick, when we have problems exactly like we're having now, comes in reality from this not letting life expand the way it is supposed to.
It's very, very helpful. Thank you.
Maria, I have a question. If we just accept what is in our life and embrace it with good and bad, how we come about not getting too comfortable in a situation that is not necessarily good, and then we don't change to develop, to aim for something that's even better for us?
It's not so much an attitude of passively just suffering whatever is happening now, because it is a loving awareness where you actually go and you're really present with what is in your life right now. You will see that you will not be able to let a very disharmonious situation endure, because actually you can only live with that when you numb yourself down, meaning that you're not really feeling it, you're not really present with it. So in the moment that you are very present, you will also see that you will start to find solutions to do something about it. You will not just indulge in it, because it brings this wisdom of the heart. Yes, you might make some mistakes and so on in the process of figuring it out, but for sure you're going to do something about it eventually, but with much more wisdom, we can say, and in a much more natural way than if you would try to force it or ignore it or run away from it. Very often, actually, we can say remaining in circumstances which aren't good for us at all is coming from not saying yes to life, not saying yes to what is there. Meaning you ignore the fact it's bad, you ignore the fact it's disharmonious, you ignore how challenging it is because you don't want to deal with it. And then it seems like you can kind of just go on. But then you get sick, then you have other problems coming from it because it's not a harmonious situation. When you really are present with something, you will see solutions will come as necessary as well, and you will have to deal with it because it is an organic process of life expanding.
Thank you. That's really useful.
Yeah, I actually had the same question, which the person just asked about how not to get too comfortable with something you were rejecting for so long, and then suddenly you just relax in this situation, accepting the limitations, and then you suddenly just becoming like what this called, this animal called, which doesn't have a spine.
Trust me, is not comfortable, because once you really, if you have rejected something for a long time, you have built up a lot of tensions inside. Once you look at it, it's anything but comfortable, I promise, because it will be very alive, let's put it like that. And it will actually bring about a lot of growth when you look at it, because now when we're talking about saying yes and so on, we're not talking about a blind acceptance, just kind of, yeah, everything is fine. We're talking about really looking at what is there, accepting right now, this is my life. And then, of course, we have options to create higher states of harmony in that, to find solutions, because you will see the wisdom of life will be on your side once you are actually embracing what is your life in this moment.
Thank you. That's very nice to hear.
Maria, are there any exceptions when we should instead just say no to what life brings?
There are, well, I will give you the answer. Watch the movie Yes Man. It's an old one now, but if you haven't seen it, watch it, because it will actually give you the answer somehow. The process he goes through is a very beautiful showing of how this process of opening up to say yes to life goes. First is a completely, with no discrimination, saying yes to life, getting in all sorts of strange situations because of it, making a lot of mistakes, but learning to connect more to the heart, to say yes with the wisdom of the heart, somehow embracing life from the heart and with that perspective. But still, I mean, the whole opening up to life is necessary in every single moment. And in the beginning, even somehow in this super enthusiastic way, as you will see in that movie, it can be very useful, because it breaks this otherwise shell we often have of being so locked in our preferences, so scared to try anything new because we might make a mistake. Mistakes are good if we learn from them. It's a wonderful way of learning and growing, as long as we don't repeat the same one. And then eventually we get wiser. We learn to choose from the heart. We learn to follow this wisdom of the heart. But I would say watch the movie as a kind of add-on to the our little talk today, because it's very enlightening in this context.
Thank you.
The Yes movie, there is also a YouTube channel called Yes Theory, where a bunch of guys kind of say yes to life, and they manifest a lot of nice things in their life. So if you want to check it out.
Good. Then we will conclude for tonight. It was wonderful seeing you, and practice now saying yes.
I will try, definitely. Thank you for your beautiful work tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for a lovely talk. That was lovely. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Just to let you know, Yes Man's on Netflix.
Sure.
I watched it.
Can you please tell me the name of the film?
Excuse me, can you please tell me the name of the film that you...
Yes Man. It's in the comments section there in the group chat. You can see it. It's just called Yes Man. It's with Jim Carrey in the main role. It's quite old now. But.
What was the YouTube program? The lady, she said, what was that?
I don't know. Is she still here? Maybe you can repeat that YouTube channel, something with yes.
Yes Theory.
Yes Theory.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And apparently Yes Man is on Netflix. So if you are hooked up there, you have easy access.
Fantastic.
Thank you for a great lecture.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Maria. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye, Maria. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.